After cooking dinner for 12 straight nights while recovering from surgery, I asked my husband to help with the dishes. He laughed, stood up, and dumped the entire pot of stew on the floor. "Clean this up first," he said, stepping over me. I didn't say a word, but the next morning, while he was still asleep, I packed one bag, and I had my gallbladder removed 3 weeks before this all started. It wasn't a major surgery, but it wasn't nothing either. I was told to take it easy for a month, no lifting, no overexertion, plenty of rest. The surgeon was clear about it. I was 43, not exactly in peak shape, and recovery was going slower than I expected. But still, I was doing what I could because I had to. We live in a 2-story house just outside of Knoxville, Tennessee. Quiet neighborhood, lots of families. We've been here almost 10 years. My husband, Rick, and I bought this place right after we got married. No kids, just us and his old black lab named Tater. I work in billing at a dentist's office, part-time now. Rick works full-time in HVAC, usually long hours. That was always his excuse for not helping around the house. At first, I didn't question it. I grew up in a home where my mother did everything. My dad used to say he worked too hard to wash dishes. I never liked that attitude, but somehow I married into the same exact mindset. I didn't notice it right away. Rick was charming when we were dating. Funny, generous, said all the right things. But over the years, something changed. He got mean. Not every day. Not even every week. Just enough to keep me quiet. To keep me wondering if it was me. Before the surgery, I'd gotten used to handling most of the household things. Grocery shopping, cleaning, bills, laundry, meals. Rick expected dinner every night by 6:30. Didn't matter what kind of day I had. Didn't matter if I was sick, if I had a migraine, if I was working overtime. He'd walk in, grunt a hello, drop his boots by the door, and wait for me to feed him. I started noticing how much resentment was building up in me, but I didn't know what to do with it. I kept telling myself it was just how marriage worked, that I was being dramatic. But what happened after my surgery? That changed everything. The day I got home from the hospital, Rick had left the TV on in the living room, and the house smelled like beer and old pizza. He hadn't even washed the sheets on our bed. I tried to say something about it, but he cut me off and said, "You're the one who wanted to get cut open, don't blame me." I laid in bed that night, in pain, scared, and furious. I realized I was completely alone in that moment. He wasn't even pretending to care. The next few days were rough. I could barely get out of bed without feeling dizzy. I was on pain meds and could only eat certain foods. Rick didn't cook. He'd come home with burgers or Chinese takeout for himself and leave the empty containers in the sink. He didn't ask if I needed anything. By day 4, I forced myself to get up and cook something. Just a pot of chicken soup. I thought maybe if I cooked, he'd at least sit and eat with me and talk to me like a human being. He didn't. He slurped it down in front of the TV and left the bowl on the table. And that became the routine. For 12 nights in a row, I cooked dinner. With stitches still healing and barely able to stand for more than 10 minutes at a time, I chopped vegetables, stirred pots, baked casseroles, all while Rick sat on the couch watching reruns of some car show and drinking Coors. He never once offered to help. Never asked how I was feeling. Never thanked me. 12 nights. On the 13th night, I'd made beef stew. It was his favorite. I had to go to 3 stores that day to find the right cut of meat because he said he wasn't eating that lean crap I'd bought the week before. I shouldn't have even been driving, but he refused to go. Said I knew better what I needed. The pain was bad that day. I remember leaning against the counter while the stew simmered, breathing slow, and trying not to cry. I'd taken my last pain pill that morning. My body was screaming, but I kept going. When the stew was ready, I called Rick in. He grunted, walked into the kitchen, sat down, and started eating. Not a word. When he finished, he leaned back and patted his stomach. "That was decent," he said. I stood there holding the ladle, looking at the mess on the counter, the sink full of pots, and something in me cracked. "Can you help me with the dishes tonight?" I asked. Rick looked up like I'd just slapped him. "Excuse me," he said. "I'm tired," I said. "My side hurts. I haven't sat down once today. I just need help." He stared at me cold. Then he stood up.
Slowly.
Walked over to the stove. I thought maybe he was going to put his bowl in the sink or rinse it out. Instead, he picked up the pot of stew, still half full, and dumped it onto the floor. It splashed across the tile. Carrots, beef, potatoes everywhere. The sound of the metal pot clanging hit me in the chest like a punch. "Clean this up first," he said, stepping over the mess. And then he walked out of the kitchen and turned the TV back on. I didn't say a word. I stared at that mess on the floor, at the food I'd cooked through pain and exhaustion. I felt my legs shake and I dropped to the floor, not even thinking. I cleaned it, every last bit. Then I threw the pot in the sink and walked to the bedroom. I sat on the edge of the bed in silence for almost an hour.
No tears.
Just cold clarity. I didn't want to live like this anymore. I waited until I heard his snoring. I'd gotten good at telling the difference between his fake snores and real ones. I knew when he was dead asleep. At 3:11 a.m., I got up, quiet as I could. I packed one duffel bag, just the essentials. My birth certificate, my phone charger, a week's worth of clothes, my medication. I grabbed my debit card and the small stash of emergency cash I'd kept hidden in a tampon box under the sink. I left my wedding ring on the bathroom counter, and I walked out the door. I drove to my cousin Lacey's place in Oak Ridge. She's 10 years younger than me, just had a baby. She opened the door with bed hair and a shocked face. "I need to stay here for a bit," I said. She didn't ask any questions, just stepped aside. The next morning, I called my job and told them I'd need time off, unpaid if necessary. My boss, who has known me for 8 years, said to take what I needed. Then I called a lawyer. I didn't tell Rick I was gone. I didn't leave a note. I didn't answer his texts when he finally noticed I wasn't in the bed next to him. It took him nearly 36 hours to call me. First call was, "Where are you?" Second, "Why are you acting crazy?" Third, "You left the damn dog here, you selfish bitch." I didn't respond. Then came the apology texts. Then the blaming ones. Then the long voicemails where he sobbed and said he couldn't live without me. I didn't believe a word of it. Lacey helped me find a therapist. It wasn't easy at first. I'd spent so long believing I was the problem that I wasn't trying hard enough. But the truth is, Rick had been slowly breaking me down for years. And I let him. Not anymore. I stayed at Lacey's for 2 weeks. In that time, I did a lot of thinking. A lot of planning. I wasn't just going to leave Rick. I was going to make sure he never had the chance to do this to me or anyone else ever again. I started digging. Looking through old accounts, paperwork, anything I could get into for my phone. And I found something. Actually, I found a lot of things. And that's when the real plan started to form. The revenge wasn't going to be loud. It was going to be quiet, precise. And it was going to burn everything he cared about to the ground. I found out Rick had been hiding money from me. It started with a forgotten bank account. Years ago, we opened a joint checking and savings at a local credit union. That's where my paycheck went. That's what we used for bills, groceries, car payments, everything. I thought we were both using that account for everything. I was wrong. While going through my emails and old tax forms, I found a 1099 from a small online bank I didn't recognize. It was under Rick's name, but our address. I searched the name of the bank, and sure enough, it was real. I clicked around and finally found a login screen. I guessed the password. Used his usual combo of his football number and his dog's birthday, and I was in. $26,341.78. That's what he had in there. Just sitting. And get this, monthly deposits. A couple hundred here, 1,000 there. Going back at least 3 years. It wasn't from his job, that much I knew. HVAC paid decent, but not enough for him to sneak away over $26,000 without me noticing, unless he was getting extra money somehow. I felt my stomach turn. He'd been lying to me for years. While I was buying off-brand cereal and stretching every dollar to make our grocery budget work, he was stashing money in a hidden account. While I was checking the clearance rack for jeans, he was buying custom wheels for his truck. But it wasn't just about the money. It was about how easy it was for him to lie to me. How easily he watched me break my back to take care of him, all while keeping secrets like it was nothing. I took screenshots. Every page, every transaction, every deposit. I sent them to my own email. Then I started wondering if this was just the tip of the iceberg. And it was. I remembered how sometimes Rick would come home later than usual, always with a weird excuse. Work ran late. Got beers with the guys. Had to stop at the shop. For years, I never thought much of it. But now I saw it all differently. So, I went looking. I checked his Google Maps history. You can do that if you're logged into the person's Google account, and Rick never changed his passwords. Lazy, really. I saw repeated visits to a neighborhood way out in Maryville. Always the same street. Usually on Wednesdays or Fridays. Sometimes weekends. Always during times when I thought he was working overtime. I zoomed in on the address. Small single-story house. A red car in the driveway in the most recent image. I didn't recognize the place. I didn't recognize the car. But I had a bad feeling deep in my gut. So I did what anyone would do. I drove out there. I parked 3 houses down and waited. After about 30 minutes, a woman came out. Maybe mid-30s, long brown hair, wearing a tank top and leggings. She had a little girl with her. Couldn't have been older than 5. And then Rick pulled up. I almost threw up when I saw him. He got out of his truck carrying a bag of groceries like it was the most normal thing in the world. The little girl ran up and hugged him. He kissed the woman on the cheek. And that's when it hit me. He had a whole other life. I didn't get out of the car. I couldn't move. My chest felt tight, my hands numb. I sat there and watched him walk inside her house like he belonged there. I waited another 10 minutes, then drove away. My mind was racing the whole way back to Oak Ridge. I kept seeing the girl's face. She looked like him. Same chin, same mouth. He had a daughter.
A whole other family.
And I'd been home cooking stew and folding his underwear. When I got back to Lacey's, I lost it. Cried like I hadn't cried in years. She tried to calm me down, but there was no calming this. I'd spent over a decade giving this man everything I had.
My time.
My health. My love. And he didn't just betray me, he used me. For comfort. For image. For convenience. While building a secret life like I didn't even exist. I knew what I had to do. I didn't just want to leave anymore. I wanted to ruin him. Not in a crazy, dramatic, throw bricks through windows way. I wanted to hit him where it hurt. Quiet. Legal. Final. I met with the lawyer again. I told her everything. The secret bank account. The cheating. The possible child. I gave her every screenshot, every address, every receipt. She nodded slowly, then looked me dead in the eye. This is going to be messy. But if we do it right, you'll walk away clean. He'll lose more than he knows. That's all I needed to hear. The next move was getting proof of the affair. Not just GPS. Not just photos. Real proof. I needed a private investigator. Luckily, Lacey's friend Rachel had been through a divorce from a cheating ex 2 years ago. She gave me the name of the PI she used. Said he was expensive, but worth every penny. I called him that night. His name was Darren.
Ex-cop.
Straight shooter. I liked him right away. I told him what I knew. He didn't flinch. Said he'd have something solid within a week. And he did. He sent me pictures. Rick kissing the woman. Rick picking the little girl up from daycare. Rick coming and going from her house at all hours. Then Darren dropped the biggest bomb. The woman's name was Teresa. She worked part-time at a dog groomer's.
No spouse.
No other children. Her daughter's birth certificate. Darren got it. Listed no father. But get this, Teresa applied for state assistance when her daughter was born. She filed as a single parent. No mention of Rick anywhere. He was hiding both of us. He was the kind of man who could live a double life for 5 years and still sleep like a baby. But he was about to wake up to a nightmare. I had everything I needed now. Proof of the affair. Proof of the hidden money. A lawyer ready to file for divorce. I even had Rachel helping me build a timeline for court. And I wasn't done yet. I wanted everyone to know who Rick really was. Not just the judge. Not just Teresa. Everyone. I called his work. I didn't give my name. Just said I had information they might want to know about one of their employees misusing company time and money to live a double life. The HR woman sounded skeptical until I mentioned specific dates and job sites. I told her to check the GPS logs on their fleet trucks. She said she would. The next day, Rick called me. He sounded furious. "What the hell did you do?" he yelled. "You trying to destroy my life?" I didn't answer. "You think you're smart? You're not. You're just bitter because I finally found someone better."
Click.
He didn't call again after that. But I wasn't done. I filed the divorce papers the next morning. And I had one more move to make. Something that would make sure Teresa knew exactly who she was dealing with. I wrote her a letter. Not angry, just honest. I included a picture of our wedding day, a copy of the bank statements, a copy of Rick's tax forms showing he claimed married, no dependents every year. I told her I didn't blame her, but she deserved to know the truth. I didn't put a return address. I mailed it from a different town. That letter was going to crack his second life wide open. And I was ready to watch it all burn. A week after I mailed the letter to Teresa, things got quiet. Too quiet. Rick stopped calling.
No texts. No angry voice emails.
Nothing. At first, I thought maybe he'd given up. Maybe he knew he was cornered and was trying to lay low. But something didn't sit right with me. Darren, the PI, agreed. "If he's quiet, he's planning something," he said. "Guys like him don't fold. They find a new angle." I started checking my credit report every day, looking through every charge, every inquiry. I froze all my accounts. I made sure the house title was still in both our names because I knew he might try to sell it out from under me. But it wasn't money he came after first. It was my name. I went to the pharmacy one afternoon to refill my meds, and the tech looked confused when she scanned my info. "Your insurance came back denied," she said.
What?
"Why?" She shrugged. "Looks like you were removed from the policy last week." I stared at her. Rick had removed me from his employer health insurance plan. He knew I still had follow-up appointments from my surgery. He knew I was out of work. He knew exactly what he was doing. It was his warning shot. I drove back to Lacey's in silence, knuckles white on the steering wheel. I wanted to scream. I wanted to drive to his house and throw bricks through every window. But instead, I called my lawyer. She was already filing an emergency motion with the court by the next morning. "Let him keep doing stupid things," she said. "It just helps us." And then it got worse. I got a call from the local police department. A woman officer asked if I could come down for a quick chat. I asked why. "There's a report filed against you," she said. "It's best you come in." Lacey drove me down. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Turns out Rick had filed a harassment report. Claimed I was stalking him, showing up at his girlfriend's house, threatening him at work, trying to destroy his career. I was stunned. It was all lies. Every single part of it. But there it was on paper. The officer wasn't buying it though. She'd seen people like Rick before. "He tried to make himself look like the victim," she said, sliding the report back into a folder. "But the dates don't line up. And we've got nothing that proves anything illegal on your part. Just be careful." I walked out shaking, but not scared. Now I knew he was desperate. And desperate people make mistakes. The next twist hit me 2 days later. This time from Teresa. She showed up at Lacey's house. It was just after 6 p.m. I was making dinner when Lacey called out from the living room. There's a woman here asking for you?" I walked out, and there she was, standing on the porch. Hair in a bun, holding a folder, face flushed. Angry and hurt all at once. "Are you Rick's wife?" she asked. I nodded. She looked like she might cry or punch something. "Can we talk?" she asked. We sat on the porch. Lacey hovered inside, pretending not to listen but definitely listening. Teresa opened the folder. Inside were printouts, copies of emails, pictures, screenshots of text messages between her and Rick. She believed everything he said, that I was some crazy ex who wouldn't leave him alone. that we were divorced already, that I was stalking him and making up stories. She told me she had known he was married when she first met him. He said he was divorced, even showed her fake papers once. She said she confronted him after she got the letter. At first he lied, denied everything. Then he got angry, punched a hole in her bedroom wall. She kicked him out that night. He hasn't seen his daughter since, she said. She keeps asking where he is. I nodded, unsure what to say. Then she pulled out something else. A bank statement. Rick had listed Teresa as a dependent on another insurance policy. Not through work. Some private plan he'd signed up for online. Probably using the money he was hiding. She was listed as his domestic partner. Their daughter was listed as his child. He'd built a whole second identity. And now both lives were falling apart. Before she left, Teresa looked at me and said, "I didn't know. I swear I didn't. But if there's anything I can do to help you, just tell me." I thanked her. I meant it. She'd been a pawn, just like I had. And now she was pissed. We exchanged numbers. That would come in handy later. But right now, I had more to deal with. Darren called me again the next day. Said he found something interesting. Turns out, Rick's side job, the one he always claimed was just helping a buddy install A/CS on weekends, was more than that. He'd been getting paid under the table doing side gigs, claiming it was all cash, but it wasn't. The guy he worked for kept a logbook. Every job, every payment. Darren got a copy. And guess what? Rick wasn't reporting any of it on taxes.
Not a dime.
Which meant we'd been filing joint returns with false info for at least 3 years. Which meant he'd dragged me into tax fraud. I brought it all to the lawyer. She raised her eyebrows. "You want to bring the IRS into this?" I thought about it.
Really thought about it.
And then I said, yes. Because I wanted to burn every bridge Rick thought he could cross. He had taken my health, my time, my sanity. He had played 2 women, lied to the government, hurt a child, and tried to drag my name through the mud. So I was done playing fair. I filed the report. Every detail. Every screenshot. Every dollar unreported. Every alias. Every address. I attached proof that I was not part of those earnings, nor did I benefit from them. My lawyer helped draft a statement to separate myself legally from his financial activities. And then I waited. Rick still hadn't responded to the divorce papers. Still hadn't shown up for court. But his world was already crumbling. Then came the next twist.
Rick's boss called me.
Not HR, his actual boss. The owner of the HVAC company. He said he was just trying to understand what the hell was going on. He'd gotten wind that someone had reported GPS inconsistencies and misuse of company vehicles. I told him I wasn't trying to stir drama, just telling the truth. That's when he said Rick was on unpaid leave pending an investigation. Don't know how the hell he thought he'd get away with this, the guy said. We checked the logs. He hasn't worked a full week in months. He actually thanked me for speaking up. Said he had half a mind to report Rick to the state licensing board. I hoped he would. And then, as if all that wasn't enough, Rick finally texted me again. It was a single line. "You think you've won, don't you?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to, because the war wasn't over yet. But he was already losing. 2 weeks after Rick's last message, I got a call from my lawyer. She sounded calm but focused. "It's all catching up to him," she said. The IRS had opened a case. They were auditing him. The PI's paperwork, the undeclared income, the secret accounts, all of it was included in the report. And because we were still legally married when most of it happened, I had to go in for an interview too. I sat in a government office with 2 agents, explaining how I'd only just learned about the hidden bank account and the side jobs. I showed them my work stubs, my tax forms, my half of the finances. I brought every screenshot, every letter, every receipt. I didn't hold anything back. I told the truth, clear and simple.
They believed me.
And they didn't believe him. A week later, Rick's accounts were frozen. The $26,000 he'd been hiding?
Gone. Seized.
His HVAC boss fired him after the internal review. The final report showed he'd logged false hours on 19 separate occasions. They let him go and pressed charges for fraud. He tried to blame me, told his buddies I was a psycho, that I'd set him up. But the truth spread fast. Teresa wasn't quiet. She told her side of it to everyone who'd listen. She posted the letter I'd sent her, shared pictures,
Proof.
her friends shared it. Her family did too. And just like that, Rick's reputation was gone. The cherry on top? Teresa filed for child support. And this time with a paternity test. Turns out Rick was the father. No denying it. She filed for back pay and won. He now owed over $18,000 in missed support, plus monthly payments going forward. That was separate from what he owed in back taxes and fines. He tried to run. He moved in with a friend down in Chattanooga and stopped answering calls. The court date for our divorce came and went. He didn't show. I was granted everything. The house. The car in my name. Alimony for 5 years. Clean break. But I didn't feel victorious. Not yet. Because there was one more thing I needed to do. I went back to the house one last time. Alone. It was half empty. Rick had taken a few things before the court order locked him out. The living room was dusty. Kitchen still smelled faintly of stew from that night. I stood in the same spot where he'd dumped it all on the floor. I closed my eyes and felt that moment again. His face, his laugh, his boots stepping over me. And I let myself cry. Not out of sadness, but because I had survived it. All of it. I'd been broken, humiliated, lied to. And I'd thought for a long time that it was my fault, that I was weak, that I'd stayed too long, been too forgiving, too soft. But now I saw it clearly. I wasn't weak. I was exhausted from carrying the weight of someone who never lifted a finger. I'd put myself last, and he'd used that. I didn't forgive myself for everything right away. I still regretted staying as long as I did. I still had days where I looked in the mirror and hated that I'd given so much to someone so cruel. But I was done punishing myself for his choices. That was his burden to carry now. Rick ended up moving back in with his parents. Couldn't afford rent.
Couldn't keep a job.
No company would touch him with tax fraud and theft on his record. His truck got repossessed. Teresa got a restraining order after he showed up drunk one night yelling in her driveway. Her neighbor caught it on camera.
Cops came.
Rick spent a night in jail. Meanwhile, I started fresh. I moved to Johnson City, rented a little house, and got my own job at a different dental office. They were kind. They knew about the surgery and the divorce. They didn't judge. I got my own insurance. I bought a little used car with the settlement money. Teresa and I stayed in touch. Funny how life works. Two women on opposite sides of a lie, now helping each other pick up the pieces. She invited me to her daughter's birthday. I went. I brought a book and a card, and nothing else. The little girl hugged my legs without even knowing who I was. I stayed an hour. Watched her open presents. Watched Teresa smile like she was breathing again. On my way out, Teresa grabbed my arm. "I'm sorry he hurt you," she said. "He won't hurt us again." She was right. Rick tried to send me one more message 6 months later. A long Facebook rant blaming me for his life falling apart. Said I'd ruined everything out of spite. That no man deserved what I did to him. I didn't respond. I took a screenshot and sent it to my lawyer. He was violating the no-contact order. He got another fine. That was the last time I ever heard from him. People say revenge isn't worth it. That it makes you bitter. That it keeps you tied to the pain. But I disagree. Revenge isn't about screaming or slashing tires or setting things on fire. It's about the long game. The quiet kind. The kind where you rise up while they collapse under the weight of their own choices.
Rick taught me that.
And I'll never forget it.